Welcome everyone, my name is Stella, and thank you for tuning in to Bibi and Yaya, where you will hear real-life stories every week which people have sent to us, detailing their life experiences, feelings, emotions, and reactions along the way. The people who write into us share their stories in hopes of connecting with others who may be able to give advice, comments, and opinions, such as yourself. You may have just the right solution to today's personal story. Here on Bibi and Yaya, we will also share our opinions with the hopes that we can help those who share their stories with us. If you have a story to tell, please send us an email by using the email provided in the description box below. And by hitting the thumbs up button, sharing, and subscribing to this channel, you can stay up to date with these very personal stories. This helps us to bring you new life stories and adventures every week so you don't miss a thing. Also, you may hear a story here on Bibi and Yaya which resonates with your life. If so, you can read what other people have posted to help you with your own personal situation. These personal stories are real. People need advice, and you have the opportunity to help them with your comments or solutions. Today's story is written by Diana, a 54-year-old woman who is an empty nester. She lets her guard down when she falls in love with someone she believes to be a CIA agent, and he claims he is loaded. But red flags certainly start to appear regarding her new beau, but she doesn't follow her gut instincts or her logical mind. Diana continues on in this high-stakes romance until she begins to discover that her love interest is not who he says he is. But is it too late for Diana? Can she escape this escapade unscathed and prevent herself from an epic aching heart meltdown? Can Diana save herself and the lives of her children? What actions does she take with the devastating news about her boyfriend? Well, let's see. And now, here is Diana's story. Dear Stella, it was almost closing time in the clothes shop where I worked when in walked a handsome stranger. "That jacket in the window?" he inquired, brown eyes twinkling. "Do you have it in my size?" Impeccably groomed, wearing a crisp white shirt with no tie, a suit, and designer glasses, he exuded confidence. I loved meeting new people. After becoming made obsolete by my pharmaceuticals job, I sold everything and moved from New York to California. My two daughters, Jenny and Tammy, had left the nest, and at 54, I was loving my independence after being divorced for 9 years. As we chatted, Mark, as he introduced himself, held my gaze and smiled. The atmosphere felt electric. So when my friend Pippa popped in to tell me about a house she thought I should buy, I just wish she'd leave so I could talk more to this charismatic Mark, who said he was 46 and divorced. How I wish now I had closed the shop early and never had met him. How I wish. Instead, after Pippa had left, I told Mark I had sold my own place and was renting a cottage while looking to buy. Later, I realized this signaled how much cash I had at my fingertips. He asked for my cell number, and the next evening we sipped champagne at a local hotel. Mark said he was now a tax exile, working for a Swiss bank. When he said he'd flown back from Geneva that evening just to see me, I was flattered. His lifestyle sounded so luxurious. He liked only the best and happily paid for it. The first time we made love, 2 days after we met, Mark pulled himself away from me. "I'm falling in love with you," he murmured. "This is insane." Soon, we were calling each other by the pet name Peachy. "You are so beautiful," he would text. One evening, 4 days after we met, he pulled up outside a lovely, empty house with electric gates. He told me he was thinking of renting it for us. My jaw dropped. We're going to live together. It's what we both want, he said. But Mark was always flying off somewhere. He did reveal that his banking job was actually a cover for his work with the CIA. This made sense. He'd let slip how he flew his own plane and spoke 7 languages. He explained that secret agents weren't supposed to have relationships, and it would take him 18 months to get out of his CIA contract. Would I wait for him? Hook, line, and sinker. I'd fallen for him and said I would. Mark went to great lengths to seem like a spy. He asked his driver to pull into a side street next to the CIA building in California. "Wait for me here," he instructed, disappearing inside. He bought me a Volvo SUV. Later, I would discover it was leased. He also gave me a new iPhone and laptop. Then Mark announced he wanted to buy a house set on the stunning grounds of Beverly Hills. I was thrilled, although he wouldn't let me visit until the renovations were complete. "I want it to be a surprise for you, Peachy," he grinned. But less than a month after I'd met him, I overheard him discussing a cash flow problem regarding the contractors. Since I had the money sitting in my bank account, I offered him the $26,000 he mentioned. It was the first of 70 transfers over the next few months. I wasn't thinking straight. That's what falling in love can do to you sometimes. His lies became more elaborate. He told me he knew Vladimir Putin and Hillary Clinton, and once interrupted our lovemaking to take a call he said was from the King of Spain. Oh, really? He picked me up for dates in a helicopter, and everything was ridiculously expensive. Yet whenever we went to pay, he just looked straight at me, and I produced my bank card. Mark promised me a fairy tale wedding and to repay me once the cash flow problem had been sorted. I never doubted him. Another time in August 2012, Mark called and asked, "Fancy going flying, Peachy?" He took me to see his collection of classic aircraft. Were they really his? It looked so romantic, but I was surprised to learn that I would be flown by Mark's business associate, Bradley, even though Mark claimed to be an experienced pilot himself. How could I doubt that he would one day pay back my money when impromptu treats like this were possible? One night, just as I was watching Homeland, a TV show I had become addicted to since Mark's confession that he worked for the CIA, he suddenly appeared dressed in full desert combat gear. "Darling, I had to see you," he said. "I've left a group of men I'm training in Syria." Because I couldn't talk to anyone about his work, I just became increasingly isolated, spending all my time alone, waiting to hear from him. I lost my confidence and slid into depression. Then that autumn, Mark told me he had a brain tumor and needed an urgent operation abroad. I was worried sick. Why was everything going so wrong? All the bills were in my name, but I couldn't hassle Mark to give me any money when he was so sick. I ended up moving out of the house and relying on friends to put me up. I didn't want to live. I spent hours on the internet researching how I could commit suicide. Boy, was I out of it. But part of me clung to the hope that I was overreacting and that my life with Mark would be wonderful, as I had dreamed it would be. By April 2013, there was still no money. Mark blamed his lawyers. He called me every day telling me he hoped we'd be together soon. I tried to end that relationship, but he guilted and gaslighted me into staying with him. By June, I had had enough. In desperation, I called Bradley, the plane pilot. I barely knew him but hoped for some reassurance. Instead, he dropped a bombshell. Bradley said his business had been destroyed by Mark, a serial fraudster whose real name was Carlo. He'd made headlines in 1991 when, age 16, he'd stolen his father's credit card, flown to Paris by private jet, and treated his friends to champagne. I remembered reading about it. He then embarked on a criminal career and had been jailed for fraud in the US and Spain. Also, he was married with 2 young children, one of whom he'd introduced me to as his niece. Plus, he wasn't 46, only 38. Lie after lie after lie. I felt sick that I hadn't even slept with him. And I was so ashamed and horribly embarrassed that I had fallen for his charm and James Bond story. That night, I went to my daughter Jenny's apartment in Boston, where my younger daughter Tammy joined us. I told them everything, trying to absorb it all. Lying on Jenny's couch, I just wanted to die. That blanking blank. Next morning, Mark called. "Baby, I love you so much," he said. "Just give me my money," I replied. The line went dead, and I never heard from Mark or Carlo ever again. I went to the police as soon as I could, but it took 6 years to bring Mark to justice. With his name on the list of the USA's 10 most wanted fugitives, he was finally arrested in Switzerland and extradited back to the US in February 2019. That August, he appeared in court, pleading guilty to 5 charges of fraud. He was sentenced to 5 years and 8 months. I've since realized that he is a psychopath without remorse, guilt, or empathy. And I lost every penny of my $850,000. What a terrible ordeal Diana suffered at the hands of a fraudster. Awful. She fell in love with someone, opened herself up, and she was duped by Mark, aka Carlo, into believing that he was a CIA agent with immeasurable wealth. What's that quote we always hear? If it's too good to be true, then it probably is. She may have been able to spare herself the agony of the lies and deceit if she was having doubts about Carlo by performing a background check on him. This may have saved her her sanity and hundreds of thousands of dollars, which she lost to this con artist. So many times we tend to believe and desperately desire to believe that all people mean us no harm. But unfortunately, Diana was scammed, and big time. She let her emotions control her actions, and she didn't listen or heed her own sensible logic. So sorry, Diana, for your loss of both love and money. I have a feeling Diana has learned her lesson and won't ever become a victim of theft again or fall hook, line, and sinker for whatever anyone has to tell her, even if it does sound romantic, genuine, and true. Love is blind. And fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, shame on both of us. Perhaps you may have the right solution or best advice for Diana. If so, we would really like to hear from you. And you can read other people's comments, solutions, and opinions below relating to these real-life situations. They could very well mirror your own thoughts, or they could be quite different than yours. Remember that by liking and subscribing to Bibi and Yaya, you will hear me read letters every week which people send us about issues they are dealing with in their personal lives. These are real-life stories and people's everyday experiences. And don't forget, if you have a personal story or issue which you would like to share with us, please send us an email using the email provided in the description box below. We would be happy to hear from you and offer advice on how to deal or cope with your personal experience. Thank you for joining us today, and see you next time here on Bibi and Yaya.